we shall start with the session. Today, I'm going to start with transportation in plants and animals. It's a class 7 topic. How to deal with that from class 6 to class 8, how it is traveling also we shall discuss. Today I thought I'll tell you something about a lesson plan, learning objectives and learning outcomes and transactional strategy, how these are related. And then I will continue with my topic, transportation. See, for any class to happen properly, a lesson plan is very, very important. We all know. And especially for the beginners, lesson plan is very much needed. And as years pass by, we'll be able to manage even without a lesson plan because of the experience. But for beginners, definitely a lesson plan is important. And they should know, for the purpose of writing a lesson plan is, they should know what are the objectives of teaching that particular subtopic and what is the learning outcome. So this is like a learning objective versus learning outcome. At the end of the lesson, what do you expect the child to know or to do? That's what is the learning outcome. Learning objective is the goal we set. And that can be a big learning objective for all the middle section. Yesterday I was sharing with you. For teaching science, that can be a big learning objective, a common goal for everybody. But for each topic, a specific learning objective is there. And at the end of each session, if we are able to reach the learning outcome based on the learning objective we have set, it means we are successful in our teaching. It means we are successful in our mission. How can this be achieved? How can we achieve the learning outcome in the child? It is possible only by selecting a proper transactional strategy. Otherwise, methodology. Right? Otherwise, it's called methodology. By choosing a proper transactional strategy, which is very much apt to your particular lesson, you will be able to achieve your learning outcome in the children. So that's what is happening in all the lesson plans. In between, we are supporting our lesson plan. We are supporting our teaching with the help of teaching aids. Teaching aids are supporting us. That's all. It's only an aid. But the main character is the teacher. Through a proper strategy, she is going to allow the child to learn certain things. And she is going to test it. How she is going to test it? With the help of the learning outcome, she will test it, right? And she will check whether the learning objective and the learning outcomes are matching. Like whatever she has set is being achieved. So that is what is the success of any teaching. Any teaching depends upon this only. We can say it as learning objective versus learning outcome through a transactional strategy. So any lesson plan depends how efficiently you have decided, how you have decided the learning objective and how you have decided the learning outcome, how efficiently you are able to decide it. So this is only the success of a lesson plan. Since even though we speak so many things, every school has one way of writing a lesson plan, and by writing a proper lesson plan, see, we say well begun is half done, right? So once you have started writing a lesson plan, it is half done. And once it is executed in this class according to the way you have written, then it means it is fully done and you will feel happy. And based on the feedback we get, we will go for the next move. So that is what makes a lesson plan effective. First thing is, we will plan with the students in mind. It is not for us. The lesson plan is not made for us. It's only for the child. So according to the necessity of the students, we will plan the lesson plan. We will cater to the needs of the students. Sometimes we will plan a lesson plan for class section A. Some questions you will get, if you are having some introductory questions, you will be getting a lot of answers in section A. But the same questions you post in section E, you may not get the answers because children may not be participative. Children may not be very much alert as they were in section A. So there we try to change the kind of questions. So I feel a lesson plan actually changes as per the requirement of the child. And there is something called SMART objectives. See, and whenever we are writing the objective, we should remember it should be very specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Based on this only, we should set the objective. See, just like that, the child will be able to know. If I give the word no, does it make sense? Do you think is it measurable? No. How much he knows? Is it measurable? No. KNOW, the child, see, if I'm writing an objective, the student will be able to know the structure of heart. It is not a measurable objective, right? I can say the student will be able to draw the structure of the heart. Is it measurable? Is it measurable? Tell me, teachers. Am I audible, teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
See, if I say the student will be able to know the structure of the heart, then you cannot say whether it's measurable objective or not. I cannot measure how much he knows. So, no, it's not a very clear word. It's some little ambiguous. So, in that case, the student will be able to draw the structure of the heart, will make us understand like you have set a measurable objective and it is attainable. You can ask the child to draw and you can see whether he has drawn or not. If not, we are again going to train him. That's all. And it should be relevant to what you are taking. It should be very specific and time-based. It's not like for particular topic, maybe for 2 days or 3 days. Within that, you should make the child do this. More than that means it is of no effective, it doesn't have any, what to say, it's not time-based. Then it takes a longer time. There is no remedial measure. It takes a longer time. So it should also be time-based. So we call this as SMART objectives as per the CBSE. They tell us to go for SMART objectives for each lesson. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. All these are very often asked in that CIET examinations. And then we should plan a variety of activities. It's not like only lecture method. It's not only activity method. Mix up everything. Depending upon each subtopic, you can give a mixture of everything. And then it should be, the room should be left open for open discussions. Allow the child to speak. And finally, we are going to evaluate. And based on our evaluation, we will reflect. Like if I feel the child has not learned it, so again I will try to change my transactional strategy according to his level. So that's what is happening. To understand this better, there's something called as a learning cycle. Are you able to see, teachers? I'll make it as a slideshow.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So this is only a learning cycle. The first one for the learning cycle is we are defining the learning objectives, and then we are measuring the learning outcomes, and then whatever is our objective and the outcomes, we are just comparing it, whether we are able to reach our outcomes as we have set the objectives. If not, how can I do better? Then we redesign the program to improve the learning. That's all is happening. This is what is the learning cycle which is happening in every class and is done by every teacher in our class. If the child is not up to the level, we again go for Asamada method. We redesign the program. This is what is happening in each and every one of our classes. Maybe without even aware of doing this, we are setting it. Sometimes if the child is not performing well in the periodic test, again, we go for a remedial teaching, or we change the strategy. We teach him, make him sit separately, and we teach him. All this happens to match the learning objectives and the learning outcomes. So this is called as a learning cycle. The next one. So I thought just like that, going with the uh, transportation, I thought I will also share some of this with you. And so through an appropriate transactional strategy, a teacher is trying to match the learning outcomes of a topic with the objectives of that particular topic, which is denoted in the lesson plan. This is what is done by a lesson plan. Now, what are learning objectives? So if you want to define what are learning objectives, an intent communicated by a statement. It is our intention, and it is communicated with the help of a statement and describing a proposed change in a learner. What change you expect in the learner, that is explained through a statement, and that we call it as our learning objective, right? And we use different verbs. The child will be able to relate, he'll be able to state, he'll be able to describe, he'll be able to arrange, classify. All these are the verbs we generally use for writing the learning objectives. Better words we use instead of using know, comprehend. All these things are lower terms. It's not of a higher level. So when you want it to be very specific and measurable, we often use this kind of verbs. Then, 1 minute. Yes, learning outcomes. So the learning outcomes defined class-wise are process-based, which provide the checkpoints that are measurable in a qualitative or a quantitative manner to assess the progress of a child as per the expected holistic learning and the overall development. So your learning outcome is not only meant for making the child draw a diagram of a heart. There is also some holistic development. What could be the holistic development? Developing the psychomotor skills, making the child draw, developing the skills of drawing, making the child understand the labels or making the child identify the parts. All this are some, that is the holistic development. But one particular specific outcome here is identifying the parts and drawing the diagram. So that's what is the learning outcome. Shall I proceed? So with the help of a transactional strategy, by setting the learning objectives, we try to attain the learning outcomes. And I have taken the topic transportation in animals and plants, which is the content. Now, shall I proceed? Yes. Now, in transportation in plants and animals is a class 7 topic. And when we are going to start with this, 1 minute teachers, we can even go for a concept mapping. Yesterday we were discussing about the concept mapping. Can we make any concept mapping? From where we will drag the concept? Yes. So in class 6, if you take, they are learning about the conduction by the stem. Conduction of water and minerals by the stem. A two-way transport happens in the stem. They are also learning about how the food is transported through the stem, from the leaves to all parts, and through the stem, water and minerals absorbed by the roots are transported. So this conduction is a very common word for them in class 6. So they don't know anything about circulatory system, or they don't know about transportation system. So when you have to drag the concept, it's fine if you go for this one, conduction in plants. If you use this as conduction in plants, I feel it will be very easy for them to jump. Otherwise, what Anuratna ma'am said, that is also fine. Transporting, the purpose of a transport. What is the purpose of a transport? It has to take something from one place to another place. And that is done by means of a specific system in our body. And that we call it as transporting system. In the case of animals, it is functioning as well as in plants. And then we'll come back to how it is conducted in the plants. Now, I tried like this concept mapping. Living organisms are made of cell, tissue, organ system together makes the organism. And one kind of organ system is only the transporting system. In the case of plants, it is conduction of water and food, whereas in human beings, an organ system is involved, which is called as a circulatory system, otherwise called as a transporting system. And then in the circulatory system, we are going to speak about the parts of the circulatory system. They are the blood, the fluid, that is the blood, which is a transporting medium, and the blood vessels. They are the parts of the transporting system, and the main structure, the pumping organ, which is the heart. So these are the main parts of the human circulatory system and their functions. Not only this, we will also try to explain about the some of the transporting system that is found in lower category of animals like hydra and sponges. They are not even vertebrates. They are still more lower invertebrates. How this function happens there, even without a proper organ system. And then how this system coordinates with the other system also needs to be, it also has to be explained. Then only they will understand all the systems together. Otherwise, they will understand circulatory system as one part. How it coordinates with respiratory system, how it is going to help the digestive system together has to be brought in finally. Then only the child will have a clear mapping of all the concepts. I feel so. Yes. Are you able to see, teachers, this concept mapping? It is our own wish. Wherever we want, we can start. There is nothing like wrong and right. Wherever you feel you can catch hold the child, there you can start. And wherever you want to extend till that part, you can extend. Shall I proceed, teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So up to this is the concept mapping. So once you have done the concept mapping, you can also try one lesson, any lesson. And that's what I'm going to give as an assignment today. Try one concept mapping for any lesson, whichever you prefer. Any lesson of any choice between 6 to 8. Right. So this is about, this will give us a clear idea how we are going to take the concept through. Now, the difference between a mind map or a flow chart and the concept mapping. Right. And I'll tell you what is it. Mind map, finally, generally we give graphic organizers as mind maps or a flow chart, right? That is to say how it is, what to say, the blood flow can be explained with the help of a flow chart, or a process of respiration can be explained with the flow chart. Whereas in concept mapping, we are trying to bring in the concepts, how it travels. Maybe we use the same diagrams like that of a arrow mark and the diagram, but the concept mapping explains how the concept travels. But in the flow chart, it explains a process, one particular process. Whereas concept mapping, we use the same thing. Through that, we try to explain how the concept travels. Whereas in a flow chart, how a process happens, a particular process happens, or the flow chart, how the blood travels in the body. So that is only one part, whereas concept mapping is a very big, huge thing. Yes?
One more thing, ma'am. In concept map, wherever we can start, not in the chart map, it's in order.
Yes.
It is in continuous form.
Yes, it should be continuous. It is not going to stop with that particular class or that particular topic. It is going to go for extended. Even for class 10, it can be taken till class 10. It can be taken till class 12 till the child learns biology. That is the difference. Maybe we use the same boxes and the arrow marks, but that is the difference. Flow chart, a process, a simple process, or what to say, a summary of a lesson can be explained with the help of a flow chart or a mind map. But concept mapping is mapping down the concepts and bringing it, dragging the concept from one thing and then ending up with so many branches so that it can be dragged again for the child's benefit. That's the difference. Can you understand the difference, Pavitra ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, shall we proceed, teachers? You can interrupt me whenever you have any doubts. Yes? Shall I proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, we'll go with this. In the case of animals, first, as I told you, we have the various important components of a transporting system. In the case of human beings, we are learning only about the human beings here. In the case of human beings, you have a medium through which everything is getting transported. We call that as blood, and the blood vessels play a very important role in transporting this blood, and you have the pumping organ, namely the heart. Now, we can ask questions like this. Do all organisms have a heart? All living organisms, can I say assertion, all living organisms have a heart. Reason, because all living organisms need to transport substances to all parts of their body. what you'll take this as assertion is all living organisms have a heart. Reason is all living organisms need a transport system to transport all substances for all parts of their body. Is the assertion correct? Do all organisms have a heart? No. So assertion is not true because an amoeba is also a living organism, doesn't have a heart. A sponge is a living organism which does not have a heart. And if you take a hydra, all these organisms do not have a heart. A lower category of an organism doesn't have a heart. Right? The pumping organ in the form of a heart is seen only in the higher level organisms, whereas some other method of transporting system is found in these organisms. They have some other methods of transporting, right? But in a well-evolved or highly developed organisms, we can see the heart. Now we can speak about the components of the blood and what are their functions. Mainly the components of the blood: plasma, the fluid in which are suspended the cells, RBCs, WBCs, and platelets. So we can explain blood as a, along with this, a very important thing what a child in class 7 should know, I feel, is blood as a tissue. You should understand blood as a fluid tissue in class 7. Why it's a tissue? Because it is made up of many cells. It has red blood cells, it has the white blood cells, it has platelets. So because it is made up of many cells, we should tell him blood as a tissue. What is the extraordinary thing here? It is a fluid, but still it is a tissue. So blood as a fluid tissue. What is its function? It acts as a transporting medium. It transports the digestive food substances to all parts of the body. It transports oxygen from the respiratory system to all the cells of our body. It also transports the unwanted waste from one part and collects and takes it to the kidney for sending out. So all these functions are done by means of blood. So we have to explain about the various components, and when you are speaking about the components, you should remind him that blood is a tissue. It's a fluid tissue, a very important thing. Any Olympiad exams, they'll ask what is blood means. They will not, children, when I personally take classes, I will feel they'll not be able to understand blood as a fluid, that's all. They will not be able to understand it as a tissue. Why we are calling it as a tissue? Because it is made up of cells. Right. And then the functions of RBCs, WBCs, and then the platelets. Each one, they know RBCs are the ones which have the hemoglobin in them. So help in the transport of oxygen. And they'll say about, when we say about hemoglobin, so many things to connect, especially after this corona, right? Oxygen carrying capacity of the blood gets reduced. All these things they will say. One word of hemoglobin, we say, they will come out with so many things, right? And WBCs, the functions, immunity, helps in taking care of the immunity or the defense mechanism of our body. And then platelets, the clotting. Blood clotting function. And when we speak about the clotting of blood by the platelets, we can also mention about hemophilia. There's a disease by name hemophilia where a person will not be able to have the capacity, whenever there is a injury in his body, the blood will lack the capacity to clot. It is a genetically transmitted disease. Some children will voluntarily ask. If not, we can also explain about platelets and hemophilia. Right. And then coming to the blood vessels, a very important concept which they are going to learn till their class 10 if they don't take biology. They take biology even after that also. Right. So we are explaining about arteries, veins, and capillaries. The child should be able to distinguish between arteries, veins, and capillaries and the roles in their transport. And then the heart. A very important thing, a pumping organ. We call heart in human beings as a myogenic heart, a heart which is made up of muscles. We call that as a myogenic heart, and mainly heart is made of, we can say about the cardiac muscles, which play a very important role and continues. It does not have any fatigue. It continues to be till the death of us. So all these additions will make the class very interesting. So this is about the various subtopics that we are going to deal with this lesson. And now the next one. Now, what could be the learning objectives for the first one, that is components of blood? So we are going to make him identify the components of the blood and relate it to its function. Now we are saying red blood cells. So what is the function? It carries the oxygen. How does it carry the oxygen? With the help of the hemoglobin that is present in RBCs. Hemoglobin, what is this hemoglobin? Hemoglobin is actually a kind of protein. It consists of heme and the globin, which attaches to the oxygen and carries the oxygen to all the parts. And then platelets, he'll be able to identify related to clotting. And white blood cells, they are the ones which fight against the disease-causing organisms that are entering the body. So this is what is expected. So I've even given the learning objectives for this subtopic. What could be the best transactional strategy? It's called as a deductive method or inquiry-based learning, where we can ask questions and get the answers from the child and we can proceed. Now, even for this, for teaching the components of blood, we can ask the child to bring a blood report. We can even ask the child to bring a blood report, any blood report. And then we can ask him to share with the friends, find out how many, what is the count of RBC, what is the count of WBC. Most of the children will be easily able to understand. So that is called as a deductive method, a general to a specific, which means from unknown to a known. This is also called as a deductive method, and many questions can be posted. Inquiry-based method means we can ask questions and get the answers. Most of the biology classes will become very interesting if you are going to ask them a lot of questions, and after getting the answers from the child, you grab the concept. So that will make the class very interesting. Shall I proceed? So this, for the components of blood, I felt these are the better transactional strategies. And then what could be the aids? We can use the blood smear slides. Many slides are present for showing them the what are the various types of WBCs, eosinophil, neutrophil. He may not understand, but you can show they're all one type of WBCs. They are shown by this color, and RBCs are shown like this. It's in the form of a button, biconcave structure, which is a button-shaped structure, slightly bent in the middle. So we call that as a donut. You can explain them. It will be like a vada or a donut where it's a biconcave structure. It's present. So that's what has to be explained for the child. So this can be explained with the help of the teaching aids. And finally, what is your learning outcome here? You'll be able to distinguish between plasma, RBC, and WBC and the platelets. You can even give the names, biological names. Some children will be very active, depends upon the class, not all the classes. You can say RBCs are called as erythrocytes, WBCs are called as leukocytes, and platelets are called as thrombocytes. Many ointments are coming to prevent thrombophobe ointment. He'll be able to relate with the platelets. So this lesson, new terms are being introduced. Here we should try to break the terms and try to make the child understand. Or a glossary you can make for all the new terms. Able to understand, teachers? Shall I proceed? Yes?
Yes,
so
ma'am.
this is about the various components of the blood. And then this subtopic I have taken for teaching objectives and teaching outcomes and teaching strategy. Shall I continue? Is it clear up to this? Yes?
Yes,
Shumala ma'am is nodding her head. Anything else you have to share, teachers? You have anything else to share? Shall I proceed? So now I want to know whether my learning objective is achieved through the learning outcome. If I'm not able to get the learning outcome, how or otherwise, how will I know whether the learning outcome is achieved by means of the assessment? I can give a quiz, I can give a slip test, I can ask him to maintain a laboratory record and write what did you see in the slide. All these things, a diagram testing or a worksheet. So all these are the ways I can assess and I can evaluate where the child stands. If he is not up to the mark, again, what should I do? What should I do? If the child is not up to the mark, what should I do? Yes.
Remedial teaching, ma'am.
Yes. What should I do? Louder, louder, ma'am.
I'm Bhanumati. Remedial teaching.
Yes. We go for a remedial teaching, or otherwise we change the style of teaching.
Way of teaching.
Yes. Again, we go for change the learning strategy, teaching strategy. You change the methodology. You change it. If the whole class, out of the whole class, 5 boys are not able to understand remedial teaching, the whole class has not understood, again, you change your strategy and go with the next class. That's what is happening in the learning cycle. Right? So this is how we generally proceed in each and every class. And I have also shared a worksheet. A simple worksheet can also be shared. Many diagrammatic questions can be asked. Identify this, name of the component, what is the function, match the component with the function. Anything can be asked. It's our choice of asking, depending on what you have taught the child. Now, blood vessels. Shall I proceed with the second topic? The first one is blood. Now I am proceeding with the second topic, the blood vessels. Shall I, teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Is it all clear? I think many have joined now. Shall I proceed, teachers?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't know whether you know this. We are going were you informed that there will be a small test at the end of this month?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Like for 50 marks, I think, right? If I'm correct, it's for 50 marks based on whatever you have learned, based on the, in my case, whatever I will ask you is only from whatever I'm sharing with you. PPTs and all. Just go through this so that it will be easy for you to take up the test. All right. So I'm again going for this share screen. So I'll proceed. Right. So in this case, blood vessels. So arteries, veins, and capillaries. 3 important blood vessels. So arteries are the ones which carry, generally arteries carry oxygenated blood, and the veins carry deoxygenated blood. All right. And arteries from the heart and veins to the heart, a very important thing. And so many differences are there. Capillaries are 1 cell thick. When an artery enters each cell, it cannot directly, it breaks down as a small structure called arteriole, which further enters into 1 cell thick capillaries and gives the blood to each and every cell. And again, it joins together the capillaries, and then it forms the venule. A small sub-branch of vein is called venule, which again joins as vein and goes back to the heart. This is how the artery and the veins are present in our body. And usually, generally, very often asked question, why do doctors collect blood from the vein for laboratory testing? Generally asked question, no, in most of the Olympiads. Why do they collect blood from the veins?
Then only we can find that some other infections they have.
Is it because of it? That is also not wrong. Correct.
Carries the vein, no, ma'am.
Yes.
From that we can find any infections they have.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Mala ma'am. Actually, one more very logic answer here is arteries are very deep into our body. Veins are superficial. When you are taking the blood.
Once again, repeat that word, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Veins are superficial. Veins are only present on the upper regions of our body, whereas arteries are deep into our body. The purpose is whenever there's an injury, the blood from the vein only will be lost. From the arteries will not be lost to save our life. Right? So that is also one of the main reason. Generally, they collect blood from the veins because they are superficial. Any lab test you go, they'll collect the blood from the vein. That is again a very interesting question. This is about arteries, veins, and capillaries. And then usually we know about artery, they are very thick. They have elastic walls and they have a small lumen. Lumen is a cavity inside. Why should they be thick and very elastic wall? They have to withstand the pressure of the heart, the blood pressure from the heart because they carry blood from the heart. The heart is pumping the blood with some pressure, so they have to withstand it. So arteries have the structure. Whereas veins, they have thin wall. They are collecting the blood back from all other parts and then carrying it to the heart. So they need not have a thick wall. They are having only a thin wall, and the lumen is, the cavity is very large. They have a valve. They have a valve to prevent the backflow of blood. A very important difference between artery and the vein is they have a valve, and that is not present in the arteries. And then capillaries, they are single cell thick. And some of them carry the oxygenated blood, and some of them will carry the deoxygenated blood in the case of capillaries. In the case of arteries, all of them carry the oxygenated blood except the pulmonary artery. In the case of veins, all of them carry the deoxygenated blood except the pulmonary vein. All these things, if we are very clear, we can explain them very clearly. And the proper chart, proper flow of blood will help them to understand very, very clearly. So what is pulse? The blood flow through the arteries makes a throbbing movement. We call it as pulse. The number of beats per minute is called pulse rate. For a resting adult, it's 30 to 80. Doesn't mean 82 is abnormal. So it is only an average thing, right? So that we have to insist the child, and we can ask him to find using his fingers and find out in some places where we can feel the pulse rate. In all those places, we should ask him to find. Now coming to the structure of heart. Are you able to understand up to this, teachers? Shall I proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Types of blood vessels.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now coming to the structure of heart. A structure of heart, like the amount of interest we show, accordingly the interest you will get as reflection from the children, right? And we can tell them about the structure of heart. Heart is made of 4 chambers, a 4-chambered heart, and it is made up of muscles, and it is present between the lungs, slightly tilted towards the left side, and it is of the size of the fist and covered by a membrane. And in between, it's double wall membrane. In between the membrane, there's a fluid which acts as a lubricant to protect our heart. All these things will add an extra point for the child, and he will understand a very important organ, and is protected by the rib cage in our body, right? Then somehow he will understand the location of the heart. Now, 4-chambered heart. Why should we insist on a 4-chambered heart? Because there are vertebrates like fish which have only 2 chambers, where frog has a 3-chambered heart. From reptiles onwards, we can see the 4-chambered heart. That says about how we have evolved from lower category like fish. All of us are vertebrates, but slowly there is one evolution we can understand. So all these will help the child to have more interest on this subject. So a 4-chambered heart, the upper chambers are called atria, the lower chambers are called the ventricles, and the right side is meant for deoxygenated blood, and the left side is meant for oxygenated blood. And then you can explain about the blood flow and also the blood vessels that are present here. When we are speaking about the blood vessels, first on the right side, we should say about, shall I continue, teachers? You want me to stop?
No, ma'am.
Is it clear, teachers? Shall I proceed?
Yes, ma'am. Continue. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes. So when we are speaking about the blood vessels, we will speak about the blood vessels on the right-hand side first. Right-hand side, our left is right. When you are drawing the diagram, you should understand, make the child understand your left is the right for the diagram because it is placed like that. And then, so the right-hand side is supposed to have the deoxygenated blood. So the right atrium receives the blood from the vena cavas, that is the superior and inferior vena cava. It's a new term for him. So you should tell him that it is a vein which carries the deoxygenated blood. Superior is collecting from the upper part and inferior is collecting from the lower part. It comes and pours into the right atrium. From the right atrium, the blood comes to the right ventricle. And we all should also insist it's a 4-chambered heart. The upper 2 chambers are separated by a septum. The lower two chambers are separated by a septum. The upper and the lower chambers are separated by means of valves. On the right hand side, the upper and the lower chambers are separated by means of tricuspid valve, whereas on the left hand side it is by mitral valve. You can also show him the cursor, or you can draw and show. I can also draw and show. 1 minute. I try drawing with the whiteboard. If you all see, I just try. Check whether you are able to. Yes. Is my whiteboard visible, teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So a proper diagram is very much essential for a biology class. A proper diagram will enable the child to understand. So first you draw the structure of the heart, and then you make him understand the 4 chambers. As you draw, you can explain, you will be able to understand. It's very difficult drawing, but I'll try. 4-chambered heart. And then the upper chambers are called as the atria. The lower chambers are called as the ventricle. Now, as you draw, the lower chambers you should show as little thick, and the upper chambers are thin to withstand the pressure. That is the reason. So, as you draw, I told you the left side is the right for the diagram. So, this is your right atrium. This is the right ventricle. Left atrium. Left ventricle. Now, the 2 upper chambers are separated by a septum. The 2 lower chambers are separated by a septum.
Ma'am, please use undo, ma'am.
Yes?
If you make mistake, just use undo, ma'am.
Pardon?
Undo. Don't need
yeah. Okay, ma'am. Okay. Right. Yes. That's easy to go for undo rather for eraser. Understood. Yes. Right. Now, we will go with the 2 chambers are separated by means of a septum. Upper chambers, 2 lower chambers are separated. The upper and the lower chambers have a valve here. In the case of right atrium and the right ventricle, we call that as tricuspid valve. Left atrium and left ventricle is separated by a bicuspid. You can also call it as bicuspid or a mitral valve, right? And you will have small structures which are attaching this to the wall. So that also needs a mention. Once this diagram, the outer diagram is drawn, first make him understand the chambers and the septum. After this, introduce the blood vessels that are involved in the right atrium. So now when we are coming for the blood vessels, we'll go with the blood vessels that are supplying the right atrium. I told you the blood vessel, the important blood vessel that comes to the right atrium is the vena cavas. The upper one from the superior part of your body, the vena cava called as the superior vena cava collects the blood and opens into the right atrium. And whereas from the lower part of the body, there is another blood vessel called as the inferior vena cava that again opens into the right atrium, right? So one blood vessel that is opening into the right atrium is superior and inferior vena cava. A diagram is very, very important, especially when it comes for biology. And the spellings, vena cava, all these things, pulmonary, all these things, when we are going to tell him 2 times, 3 times, automatically the spellings will get registered. And now from the lower side, from the right ventricle, arises a blood vessel, which is going to take the deoxygenated blood. So the right side is meant for the deoxygenated blood, and the left side is meant for oxygenated. Oxygenated blood means pure blood. Deoxygenated blood means rich in carbon dioxide. Oxygenated blood means rich in oxygen. That way also we can explain. Now there is a blood vessel that is going to arise from the right ventricle, which is carrying the blood from the right ventricle to the heart. I'll go for undo. I'm not able. Yes. Yes. So this one is going to I didn't know. Okay. The 1 minute teachers. It's becoming zoomed. Yes. No. Yes. The blood vessel that arises from the right ventricle and carries the blood to the lungs, to the pair of lungs. One. Yes, it carries the blood to the pair of lungs for purification. We call it as pulmonary artery. We call that as pulmonary artery, pulmonology, pulmonologist. We should introduce these terms first. Pulmonology means study about lungs. A pulmonologist is a person who studies about the lungs, is a chest physician. So now after that you say pulmonary artery, the child will understand. It carries the blood from the heart to the lungs for oxygenation, for adding up oxygen. Since the blood in the right side is rich in carbon dioxide, from the right ventricle, it is carried to the lungs. So it branches into two and carries it to either lungs for purification. So that is the work of pulmonary artery. Now, from the lungs, once oxygen is added, in the process of respiration, you would have explained about the alveoli, exchange of gases, trachea, all the respiratory system, and there is some air sac called as alveoli, where exchange of gases happen. Oxygen is taken in, and then carbon dioxide is sent out and is sent out through exhalation. If you want, you can just bring in that by asking questions, and then where oxygen gets added up after respiration. That oxygen-rich blood is brought into the heart, especially in the left atrium, by means of the pulmonary vein, which carries the blood from the lungs. So somewhere you might tell him that there are lungs on either side. So the blood from the pulmonary artery enters into the lungs. There oxygen gets added, and then carbon dioxide is removed. And this oxygen-rich blood is carried back to the left atrium by means of the pulmonary vein. The pulmonary vein, where does it open? It opens into the left atrium, which is supposed to have the oxygenated blood. So now the oxygenated blood had entered into left atrium. From there, it comes down to left ventricle. Right? When it comes down from the left ventricle, there is a blood vessel which carries the blood to all parts of our body. We call that as aorta. We call that as aorta. Right. And this aorta is the blood vessel that carries the blood to all parts of our body. Yes. And it arises from the left ventricle. So this is what is needed. So if you draw the diagram properly and explain a simple structure, the children will be able to understand. So right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. The four blood vessels, very important blood vessels, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and then pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, aorta. That's all. Four blood vessels, where they open, what is their function. So this is about this what we can speak about the flow chart. We can explain how the how the blood travels through the heart and how heart is pumping the blood. Here we can also speak about the contraction and relaxation, systole and diastole, the lub-dub sound. All this is our out of our interest. So based on this, we can make the child understand the function as well as the working of the heart. Right? Clear, teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
Clear, teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
Shall I proceed further?
Yes,
Flow chart
ma'am.
is how it comes to the lungs from the pulmonary
Yes, ma'am.
vein, left atrium, left ventricle through the aorta. It is taken to rest of our body. So the important one which takes the blood to all parts of our body is the aorta. Needs a mention. So you can ask them, collects the blood from all parts of our body or otherwise from the anterior part of our body and opens into the right atrium. They'll give one word answers. It's a superior vena cava. The blood vessel that collects the blood from the lower part of the body and opens into right atrium, inferior vena cava. Like that, a lot of questions. By questioning only, you will get the answers. Be able to understand
Voice is breaking, ma'am. Voice is breaking.
Aiming for NEET examinations, will be able. Thank you. Now you just check. Is my voice breaking even now?
No, no. It's clear
No.
now, ma'am. But before
Now okay.
it's breaking.
Now okay.
Okay. One minute. Just I'm checking my network, shifting to some other network. Yes. So how can we hear the sound of our heartbeat? And that is by the...
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am.
Yes?
Ma'am, actually, at the end, starting of aorta from the left ventricle, there is one valve, no, ma'am? Aortic valve.
Yes. Aortic valve and pulmonary valve.
Valve is there, but aortic, what's the function of the aortic valve? To prevent the
valve
backflow of blood from the aorta to the left ventricle.
Yes, left ventricle.
Already we see that the valves are present only in the vein, not in the artery, no? But it is the weakest artery.
Come again, ma'am. Usually for arteries only, veins only, they'll have a valve. But why for this there is a valve? Is that a question?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. See, pulmonary artery and aorta. These two are exceptions where you have a valve at the beginning at the base of the pulmonary artery as well as at the base of the aorta, because the blood enters into these two blood vessels when the ventricles contract. To prevent the backflow, these two alone, they are the exceptions.
Okay.
Yes. So that if children could understand, you can explain about this, because even tricuspid and bicuspid valves are also not introduced in class 7 level. I did not give a mention of it. Generally, if you are, if the child is able to follow, you can say. And this about this semi-lunar valves also they call it, right? At the base of the aorta and pulmonary artery. If you are going to speak about this, generally we would have framed their nice question, ma'am. We would have already given them veins only have a valves to prevent the backflow. So there is an exception. Like that, you should start. Yes, very good question, ma'am. Right. The next one is about the stethoscope. Shall I proceed? Shall I proceed?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Right. So with the help of the stethoscope, they hear the heartbeat. A very important instrument or the device used by the doctors to understand. And it consists of a diaphragm, it consists of the ear tube, and how it amplifies the beating of the heart, the lub-dub sound, all these things. And a simple model for stethoscope at their level, class 7 level. Because in class 8, they don't learn anything about circulatory system. After that, it's only in class 10. Right? If I am correct. Right? So from class 7, they learn, they have an introduction about the circulatory system or transporting system. And after that, it's only in class 10. So whatever is possible. And if you are the teacher who's going to take in class 10, ask them to remember things so that I can easily drag the concept. And for any Olympiad exams, and what ma'am asked, no, that kind of questions will be asked even in the Olympiad exams, right? Now, we can prepare them by giving additional inputs. Now, coming to this part, now some scientists, usually whenever we are taking a particular topic, we should also relate it to the life of a scientist who's involved in this particular work, or a discoverer, anything, depending upon the topic we have chosen. Here, the mention about William Harvey is very, very essential. And he is the first person to speak about the valves in the veins and the flow of blood in the heart. A proper, clear understanding of the flow of blood in the heart was explained by means of William Harvey. Is English. He belongs to England, and he had done a lot of research by means of the dissection of different animals. He came to a conclusion, but most of his theories were not accepted by the people who were there at those times, right? And there was one more, there was one more from Greek. There was one more person by name Galen. Till then, they were believing his theories on this physiology or the pumping of the heart or the working of the heart. And later, slowly, they came to understand about Harvey, and finally, it was only now accepted. Galen said, according to Galen's theory, the food enters into the liver, and in the liver, it gets turned into blood. That was the idea. And then the blood is circulated through the heart. But it was only through William Harvey, because of the dissection, mainly because of the dissection, he was able to prove his theories, and which is what is followed. With little updation, we are following now. But there is also, sarcastically, he was called as a circulator, because he insisted on circulation. Some of his books are also there, Motion of the Heart and Blood in Animals. And he also said, he was able to speak about small arteries and the veins. He said there should be capillaries also. He was the one who said there should be some capillaries. This is a picture of William Harvey. And some of his important quotes, we very often we use this. Very many maintain that we know what all that remains unknown. That is the meaning of this is Katrathu Kai Mannalavu. That's what he has told so many years before. Katrathu Kai Mannalavu, we say no. So that's what is explained by this quote. This is one of the famous quote of William Harvey. Teachers, it is coming to me as your network is unstable. Am I sharing the screen, teachers? If I have any problem, please let me know.
Okay.
Now it's clear.
No, ma'am.
Yes. Yes. So this is his lifespan. He was doing all these things before the discovery of microscope. So there was no microscope to find out. So he did the dissection in the animals, and he also studied the structure, all these structures by cutting down the forearm and all. There is one picture like this. Veins of the front of the forearm. He has studied by cutting down, doing a simple surgery to understand. So based on all these things only, he has put forward. But he was sarcastically called by the people as a circulator, but later his theories were accepted. A great physiologist who has contributed a lot to the pumping of heart. And this needs an explanation. And coming to hydra and sponges. First, initially we asked a question, do all organisms have a heart? No. So for that only hydra and sponges are the examples. They do not have a heart. So how does this food and oxygen get circulated? In the case of sponges, it's something called as a canal system, water canal system. Plays a very important role in circulating the food, oxygen, etc. In also, by means of the water only, it gets circulated. They do not have a pumping heart. So that will be a very interesting thing. And there is some videos, many videos are there in the net. And you can also check some of the videos, very interesting videos. Because my network is not stable, I'll try whether I'll be able to show you these videos. If it's possible, I'll share. Shall I share this video, teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. About hydra. Every time this keto app only comes first. Yes. And for sponges also. Is my sound audible? Is the sound audible?
Yes, ma'am. Now it is audible. Then and there some cracking sounds are there.
Sound is heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Everything. Consider the Hydra.
The video is not visible.
It's named after a many-headed monster from
Ma'am,
Greek
the video is
mythology.
not visible.
Chop off
No
one
video is
head
there,
and
ma'am. Only
2
audio.
grow in its place.
Then,
That myth isn't too
are you able to see the video?
No,
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 only
ma'am.
audio
No.
alone is there.
No,
No video.
ma'am.
The audio is seen. Okay. 1 minute. Thank you for telling me. That is because of the network issue. Is it now
far from the real Hydra's death-defying abilities.
seen now?
Yes,
They're
ma'am.
cousins to
Audio,
jellyfish.
video.
The video and audio seen?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Both
ma'am,
are
it's
right.
clear.
See the resemblance?
Yes.
Headed monster from Greek mythology. Chop off one head and 2 grow in its place. Everything that lives must one day die, right? Well, maybe not everything. Consider the Hydra. It's named after a many-headed monster from Greek mythology. Chop off one head and 2 grow in its place. That myth isn't too far from the real Hydra's death-defying abilities. They're cousins to jellyfish. See the resemblance?
Jellyfish.
But Hydra live in freshwater.
Seal and rays.
Its body is a hollow column with walls only 2 cells thick. Its head is just a bunch of tentacles surrounding a mouth, no eyes or brain. The whole thing is about as long as a grain of rice. The hungry Hydra stretches out its tentacles to snag swimming prey. Microscopic harpoons hook the water flea, injecting it with paralyzing neurotoxins. Then it's down the hatch. The Hydra uses those nutrients to make more Hydra.
Explain.
Check out this bud. It's a clone sprouting right from the Hydra's side. Hydra can reproduce sexually too, but most often they just clone themselves. Chip off the old block. Hydra are constantly regenerating their own bodies too, replacing all of their cells every 20 days. They can do that because roughly half of the cells in their bodies are stem cells, which can develop into all the different types of specialized cells you need to build or rebuild a body. Stem cells only make up a tiny percentage of our bodies, and our stem cells degrade over time. That's why we age. But a Hydra can make near-perfect copies of its stem cells, basically forever. It's called non-senescence, biological immortality. Having all those stem cells allows Hydra to recover from all kinds of damage. All right, here we go. No body? Not to worry. No head? No problem. As long as the chopped off chunk has some stem cells, it's ready to regrow. In a couple days, the severed head has a new body. And the foot, it's got a brand new head. Soon, they'll both be as good as new, except for maybe some lingering trust issues. To test the limits of their ability to recover, researchers came up with an experiment. This Hydra is genetically engineered so that under ultraviolet light, its exterior cells glow purple and interior ones glow green. Scientists basically blend up a bunch of these Hydra, leaving a heap of mixed up cells. Right away, the cells start reorganizing. those purple outer layer cells migrate out. The cells from the inside squirm back into the center. The hydra dumps cells from the interior to restore its hollow shape. The stem cells start dividing and differentiating to rebuild the rest of the animal. Soon a head starts to form. Sometimes a few little heads compete to be the new top. After a few tumultuous days, what was once a mixed-up pile of cells takes on a familiar shape. Researchers hope to harness hydra's ability to regenerate, to someday slow human aging, or even regrow damaged organs. Maybe this tiny monster will one day show us the way to the mythical fountain of youth.
So this
Hey,
is
Deep
about
Peeps.
hydra. Like that, many informations are also there with respect to sponges. So we'll find it very interesting to learn about these lower category of organisms and the way they undergo the transportation. There is no heart here. Very low, a lower category organism doesn't have a heart and still able to manage. Sponges also, a nice video is there. I'll share it. You can also see about how the sponges, they are called as poriferans. They belong to the lowermost category. All right, and then they do not even have a tissue grade of organization. Some cells are present, that's all. A water canal system is very conspicuous, so by means of which it is able to circulate the things. And then next one is coming to transportation in plants. Like in this already xylem and phloem, the role of xylem and phloem, they would have learned in class 6, conduction of water and minerals and conduction of food. But they would have not been introduced about the xylem and phloem. Xylem and phloem are the vascular tissues. Xylem's role is in the conduction of water and minerals, whereas phloem is in the conduction of food particles. That needs a mention. And you should also speak about xylem and phloem as vascular tissues. So why should we insist on tissues again? Why should we insist on tissues? Because they are made up of, teachers, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, right. So because they are made up of a lot of cells, different types of cells, tracheids, vessels. We are going to teach them in class 9 about the various components of xylem, various components of phloem. So we should insist that they are all tissues. They are made up of 4 types of cells. So that is the reason we call them as vascular tissues. They help in the conduction. What is the name of the vascular tissue in a human being? Relate this. Vascular tissue helps in transportation. It is called as blood. So relate with the plants as well as with the human beings. So the function of xylem and phloem and differentiation between xylem and phloem and the components, all these things, class 9, because it is little difficult to remember. Sieve tubes, companion cells and all. So just to explain them, xylem and phloem, and their difference is very, very important. What is the difference? Always in one direction, and whereas in the case of phloem in both the direction, all this explanation, it carries water and minerals, whereas this carries food. Very important difference. 2 differences will do. And then we'll speak also about transpiration. With that, the lesson comes to an end with transportation, right? And we'll also speak about how transpiration creates a suction pull for the transport of water. So up to this is only transportation seen in plants as well as in animals. And the last part is about excretory system is given, where we'll explain about the structure of the kidney, a pair of kidneys, how it helps in filtering the blood and removing the unwanted nitrogenous waste, that is the salt and the water from our body. So that is also explained in this lesson. And we are speaking about the structure of the kidney, a pair of kidneys, a bean-shaped kidneys. From there arises the ureter, which from on both the sides, ureter joined together with the bladder, and then which opens out through the urethra. And then we will speak about the renal arteries and the renal veins and their functions. And how aorta only branches as the renal artery and supplies the blood to the kidney, and collecting the blood is by the renal vein, which is going back to the heart. So all this needs an explanation. And one more thing for class 7, I feel important is the difference between excretion and egestion. Very often they'll get confused. Egestion is a part of the alimentary canal, a part of the digestive system, a work done by the digestive system, whereas excretion is a part of excretory system where sending out the waste water and salt. So that needs an explanation, and we should also insist on it. And about the excretory products in different animals, fish in the case of ammonia, which dissolves in water, whereas birds, lizards, and snakes, which is uric acid, pellets or crystals, and in human beings, it is urea. Very often tested things. And then about if the kidneys are not functioning properly, we speak about artificial kidney, which is dialysis. Many children will be coming out with a lot of information on this. And then that is after that, blood donation. Why is it important to donate blood? With that, we can conclude. If you want to extend the topic, some of them will come out with what blood group I have, to whom we can donate, whom we can take the blood, can extend if we want, because class 7, that is too much for them. So all the terms to be put in as a glossary. I feel all the terms to be put in as a glossary, and we should make them understand all the terms. Is it all clear, teachers?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So this is about transportation in plants and animals. A very smaller part about excretion is also given. Excretion is the process of filtering the blood to remove the waste from the blood. And that is done by a pair of kidneys. That needs a mention. Removal of the waste from the blood is called as excretion. Right? So all these, whenever we are explaining the definition, we should insist on the keywords so that you will get the answers. You will get the same answers from the children. If we insist on the keywords, then they will also reproduce the answers with those keywords.